year round.
It's so mysterious.
This is who we are.
This is who we are. WAVR.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Vote count underway in Guinea amid heavy security following Sunday's constitutional referendum. The United Nations Special Representative to West Africa and Sahel meets with opposition political figures in Côte d'Ivoire. Togo's opposition figures face prosecution after June protests.
Mr. Chala Essowe
has also been indicted on charges of incitement to revolt against state authority, contempt toward public officials, and dissemination of false information.
And UN security guard.
We are facing a global crisis. Conflicts are multiplying in the context in which geopolitical divides do not allow to effectively address them. There is a sense of impunity. Every country believes they can do whatever they want.
Details of these stories and more coming up shortly.
Christopher Aticho with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to our listeners within the Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia. Newslink begins in Guinea, where vote counting and was underway in some polling stations on Sunday evening in a referendum on draft constitution that seek to politically transition the country back to civilian rule after 4 years of military rule. According to WADR's correspondent Chiano Ibrahim Baude, some polling stations extended voting time after they were scheduled to close. To police the day-long process, nationwide authorities deployed 45,000 security personnel with armored vehicles and combat helicopters. The result from the referendum organized by the Directorate General of Elections, a new body tasked to oversee the vote count, is yet unknown. A situation worsened by the internet disruption experienced since Sunday morning. However, the voting, which was expected to have the participation of some 6.7 million eligible voters and turnout of at least 50% to pass, faced serious hurdles with calls for a boycott from two major opposition political parties, namely UFDG and RPG Arkansas. They cited several articles in the draft document that breached the ECOWAS and AU protocols on governance. Emmanuel Yeboah is a research analyst with Wademos, and he points out for Guinea's democracy the stakes are high.
Polling stations opened in most localities between 7 and 8 a.m. and closed early in the evening, some at 7 p.m. after a noticeable turnout in the early hours of the day. Counting began immediately and is still ongoing in several prefectures. For now, the DGE announces that the results will be published gradually. On the ground, the observation mission deployed by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, praised the voter turnout and the calm observed in most polling stations. We observed a turnout early in the morning. There were a lot of people, said Mahamadou Kasirin, head of the regional bloc's mission. Guinean civil society, grouped within the umbrella organization Synergy, claims to have deployed more than 6,000 observers. It confirmed that the opening of polling stations went smoothly despite some delays reported in certain areas. The same message came from the National Observatory for the Supervision and Observation of the Referendum. Its president, Dr. Guresi Kondi, deemed the process, and I quote, correct, harmonious, coherent, and peaceful, emphasizing the absence of major incidents. Several local media outlets, including radio and television stations, are reporting that the yes vote is well ahead in several of the 33 prefectures as well as in Conakry, the capital. These trends are not yet official. The DG is expected to announce the official provisional results soon. Pending the result, regional partners and observers are calling for patience and restraint to preserve the peaceful atmosphere that marked the voting day.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report. Crossing over to Mali, the country is celebrating its 65th independence anniversary this Monday, September 22, with a civil and military parade on Independence Boulevard, the first since the military took over. On the eve of the national holiday, the transitional president, General Assimi Goïta, addressed the nation, focusing on security and energy while avoiding any mention of the country's political future. Imo Edit has more in this report.
In a speech lasting just under 15 minutes, General Goïta condemned recent JNIM attacks on civilians and fuel supply convoys. He urged Malians to remain vigilant against disinformation and assured that the government continues to acquire new military equipment to strengthen the armed forces' capacity to protect the country. The transitional leader also addressed Mali's deepening energy crisis, highlighting progress made through citizen contributions to the Sovereignty Fund, which has helped improve electricity supply. But while he touched on security and energy, General Goïta made no reference to Mali's political situation, a silence that leaves questions hanging over the country's transition.
And that Bamako correspondent Leo Chiam's report presented by Imo Edet. And Côte d'Ivoire, the special representative of the UN Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel met with opposition leaders over the weekend in Abidjan. Leonardo Santos Semayo held discussions with former President Laurent Gbagbo and former Prime Minister Pascal Affi-N'Guessan, whose presidential candidacies were rejected by the Constitutional Council. The opposition leaders are calling for inclusive elections and criticizing incumbent President Alassane Ouattara's bid for a fourth term. Augustin Colley reports.
At his residence in Abidjan, former President Laurent Gbagbo received UN envoy Leonardo Santos Semayo. The discussions focused on the upcoming presidential election in Côte d'Ivoire, scheduled for October 25. Laurent Gbagbo, president of the PPACR, reaffirmed his opposition to President Ouattara's fourth-term candidacy, describing it as unconstitutional. He argued that by rejecting the candidacies of the main opposition leaders, the Constitutional Council has deprived the Ivorian people of their sovereign right to freely choose their leader. Gbagbo called for an inclusive election to ensure a peaceful and violence-free vote on October 25. Meanwhile, the leader of the FPR and former Prime Minister Pascal Affi-N'Guessan urged the UN to actively engage in the electoral process. He called for dialogue among all political and social actors to guarantee elections that are inclusive, transparent, and peaceful. The opposition leaders are appealing to the UN to play a role in ensuring calm and credible elections in Côte d'Ivoire.
Abidjan correspondent Aziz Adam Sole's report and presented by Augustin Colley. In Togo, the socio-political climate remains tense after June protests. Several outspoken critics of the government have been arrested, among them Marguerite Nakade and rapper Amaran. While the former has been remanded in custody, the latter has been released under judicial supervision in Lomé. In the case of Marguerite Nakade, she was charged with undermining state security, aggravated disturbances of public order, and inciting the armed forces to revolt. Here is the public prosecutor, Talaka Mawama.
The High Court prosecutor has opened a judicial investigation on charges of incitement to revolt against state authorities spreading false information likely to undermine the discipline or morale of the armed forces, aggravated public disorder, and obstruction of justice. Indicted on these charges by the investigating judge The accused has been placed in pre-trial detention.
Elle a été placée sous mandat de dépôt. Monsieur Chala Esowe a été inculpé de...
Mr. Chala Esowe has also been indicted on charges of incitement to revolt against state authority, contempt toward public officials, and dissemination of false information. He has been placed under judicial supervision. According to the investigation led by Magistrate Satazra, his degree of involvement is linked to the act attributed to Jamniakade Esowe.
And that's Togo Public Prosecutor Talaka Mawama.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Ghana, hundreds of protesters converged on Accra's Revolution Square Sunday evening for a solemn vigil against illegal mining or galamsey. The gathering, organized by the Face the Country movement, sets the stage for a protest march on Monday as citizens demand stronger action to save Ghana's environment. From Accra, Nade Detete reports.
The vigil drew a cross-section of Ghanaians united by concern over what they describe as an environmental emergency threatening the nation's future. Convener of Fix the Country Oliver Bakavomawa told supporters that the protest is about more than politics, calling it a moral and spiritual duty to defend Ghana's rivers, forests and water bodies from destruction. Frustration with government handling of the crisis was evident. Some participants criticized authorities for targeting small-scale miners while ignoring powerful figures implicated in official galamsey reports. Others warned of a looming water crisis if urgent measures are not taken. Awola Sewa of eco-conscious citizens reiterated the demand for a declaration of a state of emergency and called for communal involvement in the fight against illegal mining.
Water is life. As our waters are being poisoned, we're all going to be killed. And if we have to choose between water and gold, I think the choice should be what? Water. And we have to be clear that if the local authorities, whether the MCs, DCs, the police, and the chiefs say no illegal mining, there will be no illegal mining. We have a place in Gemma, and they have formed JAGA, that's Gemma Anti-Galamsey Advocacy. There's no illegal mining there, because their chief has been very strong.
The vigil on Sunday was a prelude to a march planned for Monday, September 22, a holiday to draw national attention to what they call an environmental crisis of urgent proportions. For WADR, Nade Detete, Accra.
Thousands of disaster-affected families across 4 counties in Liberia are set to receive direct support under a $725,000 US humanitarian project. The initiative, led by the Liberian Red Cross and the National Disaster Management Agency, with funding from ECOWAS, seeks to restore livelihood and dignity for vulnerable households. WAD House Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The Liberian Red Cross, in partnership with the National Disaster Management Agency, is rolling out a $725,000 humanitarian project funded by ECOWAS to support families hit by floods and other disasters. The program will target at least 1,820 families across Montserrado, Grant, Kitmount, Bonk, and Nima counties. Each family will receive $250 United States via mobile money, alongside supporting water, sanitation, agriculture, and livelihood recovery. Secretary General of the Liberian Red Cross, Greco Blamo, says the project is designed to aid recovery, build resilience, and restore dignity for affected families.
In these 4 counties, 130 are women and 70 are men. A total of 100 acres of farmland has been identified and secured for this climate-smart agriculture, and the farmers have been organized into groups. We have 20 groups of farmers, each group comprising 10 persons each. The livelihood is the second part of it. These are beneficiaries that were identified 2024.
Oversight will be provided by a steering committee made of ECOWAS representatives, the Red Cross, and the National Disaster Management Agency, with technical backing from key ministries to ensure transparency and accountability. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
You're still listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. We are also live on Facebook at WADR English Service and on Facebook at WADR News. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Vote count underway in Guinea amid heavy security following Sunday's constitutional referendum. The United Nations Special Representative to West Africa and Sahel meet with opposition political figures in Côte d'Ivoire. Togo's opposition figures face prosecution after June protests. And still ahead in the news, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urges renewed global unity amid crisis as the organization marks its 80th anniversary. We do have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
World leaders and heads of government will converge on the United Nations headquarters in New York today for the General Assembly. The High Week Summit will also coincide with the global organization's 80th anniversary. However, this year's occasion is marked by a myriad of challenges faced by countries and populations in the global south as well as those in the north. According to the United Nations Secretary General, the 2025 Assembly is about recommitting to pledges of ending conflict, addressing poor governance, renegotiating global financial architecture, and combating climate change. Antonio Guterres also stressed the importance of reaffirming multilateralism, defending gender equality, and empowering the youth.
We are facing a global crisis. Conflicts are multiplying in the context in which geopolitical divides do not allow to effectively address them. There is a sense of impunity. Every country believes they can do whatever they want. On the other hand, we see that developing countries are facing enormous difficulties, many of them drowning in debt without access to concessional funding that they require to redress their economies. Inequality is growing. Climate change is not yet under control, and we have several signals that it will probably be very difficult to maintain our central objective, which is to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees. And technological developments are largely without guardrails, and of course they have an enormous potential, but the risks are there, and some of the risks can be witnessed today. Supporting the polarization of societies, increasing the divisions within societies, hate speech growing. So in this context, we absolutely need leaders to come here and to turn the tide, to come here and understand that international cooperation is vital in a moment like this, to come here and do the negotiations and the mediations that are necessary to at least create hope for peace in some of the situations we are facing. This is my hope, and we'll do everything possible to make this summit a success and to ask the world leaders to assume their responsibilities in a moment of global crisis.
Antonio Guterres is the United Nations Secretary General.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the Newspaper Review.
The Newspaper Review.
For our newspaper review, let's join Usman Omar from Nigeria.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Today we turn to three leading Nigerian dailies, Vanguard, Daily Trust and The Nation, to be able to understand the stories shaping politics, governance and daily life in Africa's most populous nation. We begin with Vanguard newspaper, where security dominates the headlines. In Benue State, that is north-central Nigeria, tragedy struck as at least 16 security operatives were feared dead after an ambush in Katsina Ala. Suspected armed herders and militia gangs targeted joint force on patrol, leaving others missing and vehicles destroyed. On the economic front, Vanguard reports that Nigeria's crude oil imports surged by over 26% in the first half of this year, despite the operational launch of the Dangote refinery. For many Nigerians, this paradox underscores the need for structural problems in the country's oil and gas sector to be fixed. And still on governance, religious leaders are disputing President Tinubu's recent claim that his reforms have eliminated corruption. Clerics argue that corruption remains entrenched in law enforcement, the judiciary, and the electoral system. And we quickly move to Daily Trust, which also focuses on insecurity, reporting that more than 50 security operatives were killed across the country in just 2 weeks. Victims included police officers, immigration staff, and members of local vigilante groups, many of them ambushed while responding to crisis calls. Turning to Democracy, the paper warns of a looming voter participation crisis. Millions of permanent voter cards remain uncollected ahead of the 2027 general elections. And in Adamawa State, that is in northeast of the country, Daily Trust highlights a disturbing health emergency, a flesh-eating disease that has already claimed 7 lives and infected dozens more. And our final paper for the day, The Nation newspaper, questions of fairness and equity dominate. A commentary titled A Way Out for the North highlights growing resentment over federal revenue sharing. Northern states, which generate less income, receive disproportionately higher allocations, while oil-producing southern states argue their contributions are not matched by benefits. The debate strikes at the heart of Nigeria's federalism. Meanwhile, the president's media advisor, Sunday Dare, insists Tinubu's economic reforms are yielding positive results, pointing to trade agreements and new policies designed to make Nigeria more competitive within Africa. But the gap between policy announcements and lived realities remains wide. And this is where we call it a wrap on this edition of Press Review, as I hand you back to the studios.
Thank you very much, Usma Uma, for the press review.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In our guest interview this afternoon, we take you back to Ghana, where currently protests is ongoing to end illegal mining or galamsey. Earlier, hundreds of protesters congregated at Accra's Revolution Square on Sunday evening for a solemn vigil against illegal mining. And our guest is Awula Sewa, an environmentalist and the co-founder of Eco-Conscious Citizens. She says she shared with WADR the current state of environmental degradation despite government efforts.
Well, I was at the vigil myself yesterday. I was there with citizens. We support the call to get the government to take urgent, decisive steps to end the irresponsible mining. You see, we're being poisoned. Over 60% of our water bodies have been poisoned. Our forest reserves are being decimated. It has entered the food chain. We're being told that our contumely and other foodstuffs, have been affected. And in addition, the Komfo-Anokye Hospital tells us that the number of kidney disease-related cases has gone up 4 times. So with all this information, the situation is dire. We face an existential threat. And what we need from government is swift, robust, decisive action. So the vigil is a way of reminding Ghanaians about the existential threats we face.
But in all of this, the government says it is not indignant of the fact that it is aware of the present issues and therefore it is putting in place measures in place to curb illegal mining. And it says that it did not tackle itself, that it would fight this menace within a twinkle of 9 months or so. And so measures have been put in place, NIMOS together with Blue Water Guard, among others. From what you see, does the government commitment and measures put in place to curb illegal mining not enough to curb the menace?
Of course, it's not enough. When you look at the images, more and more waters are getting contaminated. See, Christopher, when the current administration was in opposition, they were asking for a state of emergency. The current administration has been in power for 9 months. We're in September. Even a low-hanging fruit like LI 2462, which in opposition, they said they would repeal. They did not repeal it, try to amend it, which is not good enough. And now the president says that when Parliament resumes, they'll repeal it. They have a 2/3 majority. So what is stopping them from dealing with this problem? You talk about the blue water guards. The blue water guards are not armed. Some of the environmental terrorists are armed. How are the blue water guards going to fight them? What the water guards will do is tell them that maybe they are environmental terrorists here and there, but we know where they are. As we speak, we know the water bodies where the environmental terrorists are. We know all we need to do is to go and remove them, which we are not doing. We formed NIMOS. They've done a few things, but if you look at the magnitude of the problem, it's not enough. At this rate, for the next 4 years, it will continue. What we want is robust action.
Reasons for which before there was a clarion call for a state of emergency is the fact that almost all our forest reserves were in danger, and therefore efforts have been made to reclaim about 9 of these forest reserves, which are no more in the red zones, and therefore it gradually or significantly tells that, look, we've made significant efforts or strides to win the battle, yet we're not out of the woods yet. And so state of emergency could be the last resort, and so we're gradually exploring all other avenues or arsenals in our headquarters to fight this battle. Is that not convincing enough?
Of course it's not. 60% of your water bodies have been polluted. Ghana Water has closed down some treatment plants because they can't treat the water. It's just too bad. Ghana Water is saying that they may have to increase their water bills by over 240% because they're spending more and more trying to treat the water. And remember, when the water is clear, it doesn't mean it's safe. All that it's done is that they've removed what makes the water brown, but the mercury, the cyanide are not being removed. So you could be potentially drinking a water which is clear, but it still has the toxins and heavy metals in it. So now let's be absolutely clear. We have about 40, we have over 200 forest reserves. About 44 were in the red zone. Out of that, you said you had reclaimed 9, out of which are under the red alert. Out of the 9 you said you reclaimed, already 2 have been retaken by the environmental terrorists. And you see, let's not rewrite history.
OSIWA is an environmentalist and the co-founder of Eco-Conscious Citizens. And in sports, Sankule joins me. Sankule, what's the latest?
There's a lot, of course. Today, is the Ballon d'Or. But quickly, let's begin with athletics because, athletics, we begin early because Botswana has declared Monday, 29 September, a public holiday to celebrate its historic gold medal win in the men's 4x4 meters relay at the World Athletics Championship in Tokyo, making it the first African nation to win the event. President Duma Boko called the victory a historic African win and praised the team's performance. So, therefore, the holiday will come just a day before Botswana's Independence Day. And, of course, in football, the CAF African Nations Champions League kick-off this weekend with a lot of, matches, preliminaries, including Abidjan's, Cote d'Ivoire. They also won. They are one of the winners for this weekend. But and finally, the stage is set for in Paris tonight as the Ballon d'Or 2025 ceremony takes place at the Théâtre de Charot.
Who are you tipping?
Before I tip, of course, let me just say this. All eyes are on Paris Saint-Germain, Ousmane Dembélé and Barcelona's Lamine Yamal. They are the front runners for this individual prize. But there are also African interests with Achraf Hakimi of Morocco and Mo Salah of Egypt.
Interesting. Right, we just wished all of them well, but
you're asking me who my favorite is?
Yes.
It's between Lamine Yamal and Ousmane Dembélé. I think if any of those guys who wins it is fine. But I think if Africans, Achraf Hakimi also wins it, nobody should be surprised.
Right. Thank you very much, Sankule Chanko, for sports. And with that, we've come to the end of this afternoon's edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Ismaila Kamara for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platform X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR English, and on Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Christopher Aticho. Good afternoon and enjoy the rest of our broadcast.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM, Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.